Hey, my name is Brennan, and this is your yearly horoscope forecast for the zodiac sign of Aries for the entire year ahead of 2022. If you're new to my channel, then my name is Brennan, and I'm the host of the Astrology podcast and the author of a book on ancient astrology titled Hellenistic Astrology, the Study of Fate and Fortune. So in my approach, I synthesize a little bit of ancient and a little bit of modern astrology in order to get the best of both worlds. So each week I release new podcasts and videos on astrology on my channel. So if you'd like to get notifications when I release a new video, then please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. And if you enjoy this video, then please consider hitting the like button to show me that you enjoyed the content and you'd like to see more of it. Okay, so my horoscopes are primarily meant to be read relative to your rising sign or your ascendant sign, which are essentially the same things. Although you can also watch them from the perspective of your sun sign, especially if you're born during the day, or your moon sign, especially if you're born at night. So the rising sign changes signs every hour or two during the course of the day, whereas the moon sign takes about 2 days to change signs, and the sun sign takes about a month to change signs. So as a result of that, the rising sign is much more personally relevant to you, and for that reason, I would really focus on that when you're looking at these horoscopes, or horoscopes in general for that matter. So if you don't know what your rising sign is, then all you need to do is find out your birth time and then go to a website where you can get your birth chart calculated, such as astro.com, and you should be able to get your ascendant or your birth rising sign calculated on those websites. So I have a video tutorial titled How to Calculate Your Ascendant and Rising Sign on my channel, which you can either search for or I'll put a link to it in the upper corner of this video right here. So let me know in the comments below what your sun, moon, and rising signs are, and which sign resonates with you more when you watch your video horoscopes like this one. All right, Aries, let's jump right into it by looking at your major transits that you have coming up over the course of the next year. All right, so here's a quick bullet point list that shows some of the major transits that I want to talk about today, including the Venus retrograde at the start of the year, Jupiter's transit through Pisces and Aries, Saturn finishing up its transit through Aquarius, the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, and finally the Mars retrograde in Gemini towards the end of the year. This very briefly lists some of the dates and time ranges involved in each of those transits, just to give you some context for when I talk about them from this point forward. All right, so let's start first with the Venus retrograde transit. So this actually started towards the later part, especially December of 2021, but it kind of continues on into 2022, the Venus retrograde transit in the sign of Capricorn, which is your 10th house of career, reputation, superiors, and overall life direction. So this is kind of an important transit for you because it's taking place in your career sector. A Venus retrograde sometimes can have to do with renegotiating or rethinking things from the past, where there may be some issues that come up, especially in terms of relationships at work, potentially with your superiors or your boss or other people that have a superior position over you. And this could raise some tensions in this area because Venus is actually conjoining Pluto while it's stationing in the sign of Capricorn, or it did conjoin Pluto over the past few weeks. So this can sometimes cause you to rethink or relook at or sometimes revisit things from the past and how they relate to where you're headed in the future when it comes to your job and your overall life direction. So since Venus retrograde cycles happen in this sign approximately every 8 years for you, it could be bringing back some themes or some ideas from 8 years ago, or 8 years prior to that, or 8 years prior to that. So it's always good when you go through a Venus retrograde to think back to the past and see if any of that is relevant in helping you to fix some of the things that are coming up in the present. All right, so that retrograde period, technically Venus stations and the retrograde is over on January 29th, but Venus doesn't fully leave Capricorn until March 6th. And during that time, at some point, Mars is actually going to ingress into the sign of Capricorn later in January, which could either force you to have a little bit extra drive and focus on this area and for the pace of things to pick up a little bit when it comes to your career and your overall life direction, or it could cause you to need to make some decisive action when it comes to choosing what direction you're going to go. And in some instances, this could lead to a separation or a severing when it comes to career matters during this time, until Mars gets out of that sign of Capricorn about a month later. So it's good to pay attention to, at the very start of the year, the career sector for you as probably one of the main themes that's going to come up. All right, so moving forward, the other major transit that's happening this year is Jupiter has recently just moved into Pisces and into your 12th house. So the 12th house is typically more of a place of sort of retreat, withdrawal, isolation, whereas Jupiter tends to be a planet of growth and optimism and expansion. So for you, during the first part of the year, the first 4 or 5 months, part of the theme may be growth by pulling back a little bit and going within. So some people tend to be a little bit more isolated during this time and go into a period of wrapping things up or sort of pulling back into themselves. And sometimes you kind of need that as you're going towards the end of one cycle, wrapping things up and preparing to move into the next cycle when Jupiter moves into your ascendant just a few months later. So one of the things to be a little careful about, though, is Jupiter's going to conjoin Neptune in the sign of Pisces in early April. And while this can be kind of like a dreamy and idealistic conjunction to happen, which can feel good at the time and can feel like there's a real lack of boundaries or there's a lot of possibilities and things are sort of limitless, it can also have a tendency sometimes to lead towards themes of escapism or just wanting to get away from everything and let go. So you might want to be a little bit careful if you have any tendency towards escapist tendencies to not let them sort of run away or undermine you during this time. You also might want to be careful that who you're associating with and that whoever you're associating with has good intentions and is being honest, because one of the tricky things with Jupiter-Neptune combinations can sometimes be dishonesty, either with yourself, if you're not sort of being honest with yourself, or alternatively, other people who perhaps may not have your best intentions in mind. So that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction goes exact in April 12th. And then after that, on May 10th, Jupiter actually ingresses and moves into your home sign of Aries. So this marks the return of Jupiter to your first house and to your ascendant. And the first house has to do with your mind, but also your body. And Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion. So this is going to be a really good period for you in terms of both body matters and mind matters, and finding ways in which to sort of improve and grow as a person, both internally as well as externally. So some people focus on health matters during this time and find ways to literally improve their physical health, whereas other people find ways to improve their mental outlook, as well as just the first house is sometimes how a person appears to other people in the world. So sometimes people find ways to improve their physical appearance or improve how they present themselves and find those little things about their outward presentation that they always wish to improve in terms of mannerisms or things like that. And to actually work on these things at that time can actually be very successful. So this is going to be a really great period for you with Jupiter going through your first house for a big chunk of this year, basically from May through late October. And then again, it will head in from December 20th until May of 2023. So the good news is that you've got one of the most positive transits of all of the 12 rising signs this year, where Jupiter will literally be going through your first house. So that's pretty good. The other thing I wanted to mention here, the next transit, is Saturn is going through the second half of its transit through Aquarius and through your 11th house of friends and groups and alliances. So a Saturn transit through the 11th house can sometimes be kind of a difficult period for friendship, where sometimes you find yourself pulling back a little bit from friends, or friends find themselves pulling back from you a little bit. This doesn't always have to be bad. It can sometimes just be a testing period where you realize that there's certain friendships that have kind of outstayed or that you've kind of outgrown or that have outstayed their welcome in some way. And maybe you've moved on as a person, or you've found um, different ways in which your own goals are not necessarily aligned with your friends' goals. Sometimes this happens as a result of people getting older and sort of growing out of certain friendships. Other times it has to do with friends making choices maybe that you're just not on board with or don't agree with. But either way, this has been a process for you over the past year or two of maybe sometimes finding yourself out of step with your friends and needing to pull back a little bit and consolidate and restructure your general approach to friendship as a general topic in your life. So this is going to continue this year. There will be some additional challenges, for example, around April, when Mars conjoins Saturn in Aquarius. This could be a very tense period for friendships in which you find yourself being pulled in two different directions, because Mars generally likes to go forward and Saturn likes to hold things back, or Mars can tend to be somewhat hot, whereas Saturn can tend to be a little bit more cold and a little bit more restrictive. So basically, this period is going to be kind of tense for friendship, and there could be a potential for some conflict in friendship during this time. There's also some tension between your 11th house of friends and your second house of finances, because transiting Saturn is going to be squaring Uranus again this year, and Uranus can indicate sudden changes, sometimes sudden disruptions, either upwards or downwards, in this context, within the context of your second house of finances and possessions. So this year, there could be a continuation of some sort of theme between tensions between friends and financial matters, or money, basically, as a theme, especially in the third quarter of the year when Saturn and Uranus get close to squaring again in September and October. Let's see, what's next? The next transit I wanted to talk about is the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, because this actually expands on that theme just a little bit. We're going to see a series of eclipses taking place that are going to bounce back and forth this year between your second house of finances, which is Taurus, and your 8th house of other people's money, mortality, and sometimes debt, or just the themes of other people's money in general. So that is your second house of finances. The main keywords, or the main takeaway that you should take from that, or the keywords that I have for eclipses, is major beginnings and major endings. So this could mean a major beginning when it comes to financial matters in your life and the role that financial matters play in your life, both in terms of your finances as well as other people you know, or in some instances, like through your partner, if you have a marriage partner or relationship partner. It can also pertain to restructuring debt and needing to either take on additional debts, or in some instances bring that to a close by paying off and finishing major debts that have been hanging over your head up to this point. Sometimes topics having to do with mortality come up, which can be just a necessary life cycle in terms of not just sometimes thinking about your own mortality and things like, getting life insurance or what have you, and planning for that as an eventuality, but also sometimes dealing with that as an eventuality in the lives of other people around you, and sometimes dealing with things like an inheritance or wills and other things like that can come up when you're having major 8th house transits. So with some of these eclipses taking place in this time, it might be good to think about and pay attention to, especially in this time frame. The first set of eclipses will be April and May, and the second set of eclipses there will be October and November. So the last thing I wanted to mention on my list here is that Mars is going to go retrograde in Gemini in the second half of the year. Specifically, it's going to start as soon as Mars ingresses into the sign of Gemini on August 20th, but it's really going to intensify around October 30th when Mars actually stations retrograde in Gemini in your third house of communication, short distance trips, education, and also siblings and extended family or relatives. So Mars can be a planet that sometimes speeds things up. So one of the things is it may simply be speeding up activities in this area and forcing you to put more focus and attention on this area of your life. In other instances, it can sometimes bring so much excess energy to this area that it can cause conflict and an excess of heat in this area of your life. So sometimes there can be tensions with siblings or in communication. You have to be a little bit careful not to say the first thing that comes to mind because you may end up causing conflict or strife as a result of communication is a common theme when it comes to Mars transits through the third house. You also want to be a little bit careful about travel, not to do anything too impetuous or risky or sort of like daredevil-y when it comes to a Mars retrograde transit in your third house, because otherwise sometimes that can coincide with difficulties or setbacks like accidents or issues with cars and things of that nature. That's going to be kind of a long-term transit, though, in the later half of the year. And since Mars is your ruling planet, it may just be an important turning point where you find yourself focusing a lot on communicating or interacting with third house people in your life, such as siblings, relatives, or even neighbors, and having that take much more attention and focus than at other times in your life or in other years of your life. So it could not necessarily be a bad thing, but just pay attention to it in order to exercise additional caution, let's say. All right, so I think that's actually it in terms of the major transits I wanted to mention. Here are the dates again one more time, just to give you a glimpse at that. And I think that's it in terms of looking at transits. So thanks a lot for watching. All right, that's it for this horoscope forecast for 2022. So as always, this was just a general forecast that focuses on some of the broad outlines of the year ahead. So if you'd like a more detailed analysis of some of the general transits this year, then be sure to check out our year ahead forecast for 2022 that we released in December. Additionally, for a more detailed analysis of your chart, you might want to get a consultation with an astrologer because they can look at it in much more detail than I can go into here in just a general horoscope. Alternatively, or better yet, you could also learn how to read your birth chart and transits on your own, which would allow you to pinpoint some of the dates involved with much more precision and exactness. So if you'd like to learn more about my approach to astrology, then you can get a copy of my book titled Hellenistic Astrology, The Study of Fate and Fortune. And in this book, I reconstructed the original system of Western astrology and recovered some techniques that we had lost many centuries ago. So with this book, I sort of teach you how to read a birth chart and how to use different timing techniques in order to determine when different things will happen during the course of your life, or in some instances during the course of a single year, as I've attempted to do in this horoscope forecast. So the book is available on Amazon as well as in other fine bookstores everywhere. I also teach an online course on ancient astrology, which has over 100 hours of video lectures. It shows hundreds of different example charts in order to show you how the different techniques work in practice. And it really gets into details that I couldn't go into as much in my book, even though the book is very big. In the course, I actually get into a lot more example charts, which really gives you better hands-on experience of how to use astrology to read birth charts in practice. So you can find out more information about that at courses.theastrologyschool.com. And finally, I also recently released my 2022 electional astrology report, where I went through the year and I picked out some of the most auspicious or lucky dates with one lucky date or electional chart for each of the next 12 months. So these are useful for starting different types of ventures and undertakings using the principles of electional astrology. The report is also available at courses.theastrologyschool.com. All right, so that's it. So thanks for watching. Good luck in 2022, and may the stars be ever in your favor. Special thanks to all the patrons that supported the production of this episode of the podcast through our page on patreon.com. In particular, thanks to the patrons on our producers tier, including Nate Craddock, Thomas Miller, Catherine Conroy, Christy Moe, Ariana Amour, Mandy Ray, Angelique Nambo, Sumo Kopic, Issa Sabah, Jake Otero, Morgan McKinsey, and Kristen Otero. If you like the work that I'm doing here on the podcast and you would like to find a way to support it, then please consider becoming a patron through my page on patreon.com. And in exchange, you'll get access to bonus content such as early access to new episodes, the ability to attend the live recording of the month ahead forecast each month, access to a private monthly auspicious elections report that we put out each month, access to exclusive episodes that are only available for patrons, or you can also get your name listed in the credits at the end of each episode. For more information, go to patreon.com/astrologypodcast. The main software we use here on the podcast to look at astrological charts is called SolarFire for Windows, which is available at alabe.com, and you can use the promo code AP15 to get a 15% discount. For Mac users, we use a similar set of software by the same programming team called AstroGold for Mac OS, which is available from astrogold.io, and you can use the promo code AstroPodcast15 to get a 15% discount on that as well. Also, special thanks to our sponsors, including the Mountain Astrologer magazine, which is available at mountainastrologer.com, the Honeycomb Collective Personal Astrological Almanacs, available at honeycomb.co, and the AstroGold Astrology app, which is available for both iPhone and Android at astrogold.io. There are also two major astrology conferences happening this year. The first is the Northwest Astrological Conference, happening May 26th through the 30th, 2022, near Seattle, Washington. Find out more information at norwac.net. And the second is the International Society for Astrological Research Conference, which is taking place August 25th through the 29th, 2022, in Westminster, Colorado. And you can find out more information about that at isar2022.org.